Aye, shepherd's pie, greetings from the Philippines. Welcome back to the channel for a walk and a talk. Haven't done one for a while. Now today I'm going to give a bit of advice because I am frequently asked to give advice and I'm never comfortable doing so for two reasons. One is, I think, who am I to give advice? What makes me an expert? And the other thing is, we're all different. You know, how I do things and what applies to me may not apply to you, may not be appropriate for you. But because I have a channel, people ask me questions, people message me, they ask me advice, they put it in the comments. And I've started watching other vlogs, and I've seen some vlogs recently who I don't believe are painting the Philippines in a particularly accurate light. Over-exaggerating, shall we say, the dangers over here. You know, there are horror stories in every country. There is a chance of being robbed and potentially injured or even killed in every country. There's a chance your girlfriend could have you arrested and jailed for a long time in any country. Overall, the Philippines is a great place. If I didn't love it here, I wouldn't be living here. But there are some issues. There are some dangers, some inherent dangers, which you need to be aware of. And if you follow my advice or take on board my suggestions, there's only three, I think there is the potential that they will greatly minimise your risks, enhance your time here, and dare I say, potentially make you a better person. That's a bit strong. Not a better person. Take that one back. But anyway, no, seriously, I have given this advice a lot of consideration over the last few days, these 3 points. I've been looking for something that is one size fits all, even though life isn't one size fits all. But yeah, I think if you can take these 3 points on board, if you can give them serious consideration, your life might go a bit more smoothly in the Philippines. You will have more chance of staying here longer term and potentially living happily ever after. So here we go. Hello! We might even call these the 3 golden rules. So what is the first golden rule or the first piece of advice I would offer? And this can apply, these 3 pieces of advice can apply to any country in Asia really. But we're talking about the Philippines now. Bloody dogs today. We're talking about the Philippines today, but they could apply to Thailand. They could apply to Cambodia. So number 1, think different. Try to think different. I've taken that tagline from Apple, but it applies over here. This is not a Western country, but it is very Asia-like. I often use that term because it is by far the most westernized Asian country in terms of culture. And because of that, I think a lot of people come here naively and think they can live like a Westerner, hello, and have a Western mindset. They come here on holiday, people can talk the language, they see the coffee shops and, you know, all the Western trimmings that you have in the Philippines, and they dream of moving here. They dream of coming here. They dream of building a house, meeting the woman of their dreams, settling down and living happily ever after. It's amazing how many people you meet who come over here, who've had this dream, who've, like, you know, they're here on their first week or their first month, and they've been to the Philippines maybe once or twice before, and you'll meet them in a bar or a restaurant, and they'll tell you they're waiting for their LDR to turn up because she's done some shopping or something like that, and they've got some land marked out and they're starting building the house next week. Because they are, in their mind, fulfilling their dream. Well, there are reasons why they're called dreams. Because that's what they are. They're dreams. And turning your dreams into a reality can be a very difficult thing. And often your expectations aren't realistic in reality. And dreams don't have to be realistic. I mean, that's the whole point of having dreams. But when you start talking about marrying people after a few weeks and building houses and buying land in a country you've never lived in, then those dreams are becoming very risky. There are inherent dangers which you need to consider. So I would ask yourself, think different. You're in the Philippines now. You know, it's the Western dream is to, they say in America, get married, buy a house with a white picket fence, etc. You know, they are the Western dreams. But because they are the Western dreams, our society has evolved to facilitate those dreams as much as possible, to protect those dreams. You know, we say in England, an Englishman's home is his castle. You know, there are laws to protect the property that you buy. You have a solicitor, a lawyer, attorney, whatever you call it in the country you come from, who does the due diligence, who makes sure that the land belongs to you and there are no claims on it. And when you use a lawyer or an attorney or whatever, you get legal protections. You know, there are bodies and organisations that will deal with noisy neighbours and, you know, antisocial behaviour. It'll be different in each country, but those things exist. Because everything is designed around Western ideas. Dream home, your house, your home, build a family. You know, they're all there. But you don't have those in the Philippines. Don't have the same protections over here. You don't have, you know, the guarantee that even if you use a lawyer, an attorney, to do the paperwork and to do the land checks, there is no guarantee that a relative is not going to come out of the woodworks several months later after you've built the house and claim it and have their claim upheld, and you can lose everything. There is no guarantee, unless you're going to buy acres or kilometres or all the plots around your house, that someone's not going to open a rooster or a pig farm next door to you, that your neighbours aren't going to play karaoke until the early hours. These things are realities. It's the Philippines. You know, it's the culture over here. It's very different to a Western country. So try and think differently when you come here. Just because you might buy land or build a house or whatever in the Philippines, in your home country, doesn't mean you need to do it here. Just because your dream was to settle down and get married and live happily after, doesn't mean you need to do it straight away. Because a hell of a lot of people seem to come here blinded by this dream and switch off to the realities and the dangers. They seem oblivious to them. Or the strange thing is, they're not actually oblivious to them because they seem to know, because when you talk to them or do interviews and things, they'll say, yeah, but my girlfriend's not like this or whatever. So they know those dangers are there, but they convince themselves that they don't apply to them, that they have to get married because that's what the girlfriend expects. You know, well, try and think a bit different. You know, think different. Live here for a couple of years. Try a few different places. Don't get married straight away. Spend a bit of time getting to know each other. You know, trouble with these old LDRs is absence makes the heart grow fonder. Wise words, it does. But familiarity breeds contempt. Can't speak today, that's not unusual. You know, so try and think different. Try and adjust your expectations. I'm not saying you can't come here and live the dream, but try and mould the dream into a more Filipino dream. Because you can have your cake and eat it here if you choose the right cake. Now, I know some people will say they've come over here, they're living the dream, they found the land, they've got a perfect woman, they've built a house, it's the best thing they've ever done. Well, as I've said before, power to them, but a lot of that is luck. Everything in life is luck. You may not be that lucky. You know, some people are saying noise pollution, go and see the barangay captain. Well, that might work in some barangays. You know, it might do. But in a lot it won't. In a lot they'll think you're the one who's being unreasonable, you know, when you're complaining about the noise and things. They have a different attitude to noise and stuff like that over here. And even if the barangay captain comes down on your side, that's going to cause friction with the neighbours. And you don't want that if you've built a house. You don't want to be at war with your neighbours. And that will put your partner in a very difficult situation. Because she doesn't want to lose face, she wants to support you. You know, it can all turn nasty. So why get yourself in that situation? You know, think differently. Have a look at the Philippines, spend some time here, and then adjust your expectations and your plans in accordance to what you've learned during your time here. You know, knowledge is key, and you can't pick up knowledge about a country, in my humble opinion. Hello. If you haven't spent time here, it's impossible. But there you go. That is my first piece of advice. Try and think differently. Some people will agree. Some people will vehemently disagree. Sadly, I think the people I'm talking to probably won't listen. But hey ho, I've said it. You know, who am I to offer advice? Just my opinion, take it or leave it. But anyway, my next piece of advice, golden rule number 2. Always expect the unexpected. You can say this about any Asian country, but the Philippines seems to throw up the unexpected more than anywhere else I've lived. You can plan for any eventuality, but something always comes up you're not expecting. You know, you think you've sorted out the power brownouts, or you've got your electricity supply sorted, you know, you've got your solar panels and everything up, you've got your water tank, so the pressure's good, and the water can get cut off. You know, you found a nice house, you love it, everything's sorted out there. A rooster farm turns up next door. Your neighbours move in. Karaoke 24 hours a day. It turns out your wife has a husband and she's not really divorced. All sorts of things can happen in the Philippines. They can happen anywhere, but more so in the Philippines. So be prepared for that. Now, how do you prepare for the unexpected? I mean, by definition, it is unexpected. Health issues. can arise. Forgot what my next point was there. All sorts of things can arise. You might turn out that you hate the Philippines. You know, so you might decide to move on. You will only find out if you like somewhere after a period of time, which is why my first advice was to think different. So try to protect yourself. If you are going to buy land, use a good attorney. Do research. Think about who may move in next door. A lot of people will say, if you've got the money, you buy the surrounding lots. The point is, don't overextend yourself. Don't pour everything into a dream, which and blind yourself to the realities. As I say, there will always be unexpected scenarios in the Philippines. It's an incredible place for like that. I'm not knocking it. I love the Philippines. If I didn't like it in the Philippines, I would not be here. But the reality is, every week something happens here that catches me by surprise. You know, and every week when you go out and about in the evenings during the day, you will meet people who have been confronted by an issue they didn't see coming. It's just the way it is in the Philippines. That's why I've never bought property over here. That's why I have no plans to build property over here or invest things. That's why I like the house we're in now, because it's on a month-to-month contract. Because there will always be unexpected things that come up, which I didn't expect to. And I like the idea that if the worst happens, I can pack my suitcases. I'm not talking about leaving Ellen, she can come with me, and we can go somewhere else. We're not trapped, we're not stuck in a ridiculously difficult scenario. It's one of the reasons why I didn't like the old, you know, this exit clearance visa thing and that. I don't like the idea of not being able to, or just being trapped in a situation. And that can happen in the Philippines, with the best will in the world. So when you are making your plans, if you do decide that you are going to get married, think about prenups and things. Think about what can go wrong. Hopefully it won't. But if it can, if you plan for it, what would be the best way to mitigate the negative effects? Plan for the worst and hope for the best. That really is the way I would look at it over here. You know, in a Western country, yeah, you could always, the house could get, I don't know, an act of God or something, the insurance might not pay out, terrorism or whatever. It can happen anywhere. But it is a hell of a lot more likely to happen here. You have to protect yourselves. You have to plan for the worst case scenario. You have to have emergency funds if you have a, you know, an illness or be able to self-insure. Only a fool would move to the Philippines and, you know, just rely on luck, blind luck, because it's a nice place to live. It's a wonderful place to live in many ways. I mean, don't get me wrong, it can be challenging, but it can be bloody unforgiving. If you fall down on your luck here, not a good country to be, I would suggest. Not a good country to be if you were to get sick and go bankrupt, you know, run out your money or whatever. You can have real problems here. Very easy to lose everything in the Philippines. So obviously you have to take the odd gamble. You know, you can't plan for every eventuality. You can't protect yourself against every scenario, but you can try. Always expect the unexpected. Plan for the worst and hope for the best. So that is golden rule number 2, or my piece of advice number 2. Confrontational people. They do not like to cause issues. I mean, don't get me wrong, you'll get your drunk Filipino guy who might want to be a bit obstreperous, but just be nice. It's amazing how many arseholes you get over here, expats, who will just talk to Filipinos like they're crap. in bars and restaurants and things like that. It seems to be acceptable for some reason. You see it with a lot of the business owners and that there. They just talk to their staff like they're just shit on their shoes. And it's not nice. You don't need to be that way. But what I'm getting at is you can get a reputation amongst the local community. And you might not realise that. Because they're not confrontational, you know, you won't realise that they're talking behind your back. You won't realise that there is resentment building. And that basically you're setting yourself up for big problems further down the line. Because it can reach a peak when people have just had enough of you. And they can make complaints here. You know, they can make complaints to the immigration authorities, which can potentially stop you from being able to live here. You can get kicked out. You cannot extend your visa. You know, you may need help or assistance further down the line. And you won't get it because of the way you have behaved. I don't know why people act that way over here. I think a lot of it's obviously frustration. I'm sure some of them were quite relaxed, chilled out guys before they came here, and the Philippines has changed them. I keep saying I'll do a video on the evolution of an expat because I have noticed a pattern over the years. But if you're just nice to people, you will find the Filipinos will be nice back. They will be very helpful. When you have issues, they will be supportive. Filipinos are quite an insular people. You know, I found it quite hard to break the ice and build big friendships. I know some of you will say, you know, you've done it and all this and that, but, you know, I'm talking about real friendships. I mean, if you had a health scare or your wife left you or, you know, you're upset or whatever, are there really Filipinos you can go and talk to about, you know, I'm not talking about saying hello or having a coffee. I'm talking about, you know, really open your soul to and not be judged and feel comfortable doing it. Because I had some friends like that in Thailand, but not many people do develop that friendship with Thais. So what I'm saying to you is, it's quite hard, I think, to build relationships like that with Filipino people. I mean, don't get me wrong, I know people who work in the places I go and that will have a laugh and a joke with and a chat with and buy them a drink and things and ask them how the kids are. But we're not friends. Because we're just don't have that kind of relationship. But when you're nice to these people, you know, just because you're not friends doesn't mean that they won't help you or try and help you or support you when you have issues. Because in my experience, they will. We've had some great help from our neighbours when you know, the water's gone off and things like that. Part of that's because Helen's Filipino, but I think part of that's also because we get them Christmas presents and we're friendly, that kind of thing. You know, there's a guy who lived not too far away from us, an American guy, who's an arsehole. Falling out with the neighbours and that all the time. You know, if there was a natural disaster here, I can guarantee you none of the neighbours would be queuing up to help him get through it. But there you go. And it's the same with the expats. You know, if you're nice, you're friendly, you'll get help from the expat community. And particularly in a place like Dumaguete, there are a lot of expats here who are very well connected, you know, to local Filipinos through marriage and friendships, etc., who can help you out of virtually every situation. I'm not going to go into details, but there's been a few issues over here that I've heard of which I thought, God, this isn't going to turn out well. And because the people are nice and because they've got friends, you know, they've helped them. Equally, you hear of some people who've come unstuck over here and they've had to go. I know of some, and they've had to leave and they've got in terrible trouble. Now, it's partly because they broke certain rules, but that's why they did it, and that's why they are in the trouble. But the point is, because no one's liked them, because they have been a-holes, no one's helped them out of situations where they could have not had to leave under the circumstances we left, shall we say. I won't go any further than that, but that is the reality, you know, and it should be a good way of looking at life. Be nice to people over here. Don't know why you would come to a country to live in and be unpleasant to the people that live here. But you see it all the time. And it's shocking. It is shocking. But it's a sad reality. Don't fall into that trap. Don't become a bitter expat. Sorry, I got the light behind me now, so I'm going to turn the camera around this way. So there you go. I think that's one size fits all advice. I'm offering it with the best intentions. I'm not trying to lecture people, you know. Take it or leave it. Take it with a pinch of salt. But if you do try and think different, if you do expect the unexpected, and if you try and be nice to the people you interact with, try and be a nice, helpful, friendly member of the community, I think you're greatly going to enhance your chances of having a good time in the Philippines. I really do. I can see no negatives to it. But there you go. Maybe that's just me. Maybe you think I'm talking nonsense. Well, maybe you're right. But as I say, I'm making this video today. I'm not making out I'm some guru on life in the Philippines. I often get asked questions. I often get asked for advice. That's the extent of my advice. You know, can't really go any further than that. That is kind of my one size fits all advice. Follow that, in my opinion. Touch wood, you won't go too far wrong. But there's no guarantees. Expect the unexpected. Anyway, there you go. I've said my piece. Now, just before I sign off, it's a note for my regular subscribers, my Beer and a Chat live streamers. I have been roped into doing the music quiz again at Sideways. They threw it on me last Thursday. I wasn't expecting it, but they've asked me to do a quiz on Tuesday this week, which I agreed to, spur of the moment, without thinking, wait a minute, that's going to clash with my 7 PM Beer and a Chat. So what I propose to do, I don't know if it's going to be a permanent thing. Ewan's hoping it is, and I might do it longer term if enough people come. But at this moment in time, I am only talking about next week. So, the Beer and a Chat, the Tuesday night regular, 7 PM Filipino time live stream, is going to be Monday at 7 PM local Filipino time. And hopefully it'll be a beer and a chat. We've got elections over here at the moment, so all the bars and well, most of the bars and restaurants are closed. They can't sell alcohol. But I will get a couple of beers in the day before in preparation. So anyway, hopefully my regulars can join me. If you're not a regular, it would be fantastic if you joined. It's a regular live stream, 7 PM on Monday. I'd like to tell you the date, but I can't remember. But it's I'm going to raise this video today, so it's this Monday coming. Anyway, hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, smash the like button. If you haven't subscribed, it would be fantastic if you did. But whether you do, whether you don't, stay safe. Be lucky.